hero is Chadwick Boseman.
Receiving an award for playing a superhero is amazing, but it's even greater to acknowledge the heroes that we have in real life. If you don't know James Shaw Jr., he fought off a gunman in Antioch, Tennessee at a Waffle House. This is gonna live at your house.
You know me. This is my partner here. It's Jim Gary. He's from up north at Montana way. He's good friend. He's big brain.
Lie. Napaninez, soldier. I see him before.
Well, you got a good memory. Yeah, I was with Major Fraser last year when you signed the peace treaty.
Now you break treaty. You come here.
No, I'm not in uniform. You see, my coming here has nothing to do with the Army. We're here to trade.
Yeah.
Show him, McCabe.
You're still giving the orders, huh? Quanta, I'd like to talk a little business with you. You got 2 pack horses here, first class, pretty merchandise. Oh, you.
She's no anumpa. Nakeyo.
Netherlands. A wealthy nation, densely populated and well known for its social tolerance. It is the European part of the Kingdom of the Netherlands, which consists of the Netherlands Antilles, and Aruba in the Caribbean. But what is it that made the Netherlands one of the 10 richest nations in the world? Where did all that wealth come from? What is the origin of the Dutch royal family's fortune of an estimated $8 billion? Enter the Golden Age. The Dutch history books speak fondly about the era of great prosperity that spanned the 17th century. By 1750, the Netherlands was the foremost commercial and maritime power of Europe, turning Amsterdam from an insignificant fisherman town into the financial center of the world. It also represents the golden age of Dutch art, with painters like Rembrandt and Vermeer. Dominating the world trade, the Dutch established a great colonial empire and operated the largest fleet of merchants of all Western nations. Under supervision of the Dutch East India Company, huge profits returned from the East Indies. The Dutch soon governed their territories in order to maintain the trade. Less prominent in the Dutch history books is the story about the West India Company, the government-incorporated trading organization that would share the world trade with its East India counterpart. It is a dark chapter in the Dutch history, a story about how the Dutch enriched themselves through transatlantic slave trade, piracy, and smuggling. The West India Company was founded in 1621 and was given authority to conduct business and military action in West Africa and the Americas. Initially trading tobacco, sugar, and gold, the Dutch soon excelled in the trading of slaves. In 1619, American colonist John Smith recorded, "About the last of August came a Dutchman that sold us 20 niggers."
Yeah, Indians, niggers, same thing.
In the reported tragedy of 1738, the Dutch slave ship Loosden sinks in front of the Suriname coast. As the crew heads for the lifeboats, 702 of the 716 slaves aboard drown, locked into the deck below. facing a life of endless, forced hard labor. After the ships were loaded with sugar, gold, or tobacco, they returned to the Netherlands, making the triangular voyage complete. Although the Dutch history books repeatedly tell us the profits from slave trading were minimal, eventually many ships returned without cargo. The profits were so high, the merchants didn't even bother to reload their ships at all. After the monopoly of the West India Company on the transatlantic trade had ended, the Middelburg Commercial Company and the WIC caused the Dutch to dominate the transatlantic slave trade from 1750 to 1775. In this period, the Netherlands became the #1 supplier of slaves to Spanish colonies in the Americas. The Dutch slave trade, piracy, and smuggling enriched the reigning Dutch royal family. In the early 17th century, Prince Frederick Hendrik orders the construction of many palaces and builds up an astonishing art collection. Formally, Prince Willem V was the last member of the Dutch royalty who profited substantially from the slave trade up to the early 19th century. In 1814, the Kingdom of the Netherlands officially ends its participation in the Atlantic slave trade, partially because of the declining profits. But slavery in the colonies is not abolished until 1863, being the last nation in Europe to end slavery. Even up until 1873, the freed slaves are under government supervision, forced to work on the same plantations for a salary to avoid the collapse of the Dutch sugar industry. In 2002, Queen Beatrix opens the Dutch National Monument of History of Slavery during a chaotic ceremony where many descendants of slaves are denied participation. Up until this day, neither the Dutch royal family nor the Dutch government officially apologized for their role in the transatlantic slave trade.
Capitalism. I like capitalism. What I don't like are monopolies and violence, and those are both aspects of one of the first capitalist enterprises and the subject of today's episode, the Verenigde Oost-Indische Company. And I will remind you that mispronouncing things is my thing. In English, of course, that's the Dutch East India Company. I'd like to use the Dutch, though, but I can't pronounce it, so we're just going to compromise and call it the VOC. So you probably remember from our first series that trade in the Indian Ocean had gone along swimmingly for hundreds of years until the Portuguese tried and failed to dominate it in the 15th and 16th centuries. And you may also remember that in between the Portuguese and the massively powerful British Empire, there was another European power, the Dutch. At the time, the Netherlands was a country of 1.5 million people, about as many people as currently live in Greater Indianapolis. Now, admittedly, they'd already accomplished some impressive things. For instance, they dug most of their country out from the ocean. But how they came to thoroughly dominate world trade for 50 years tells us a lot about capitalism, technology, and also violence. I suppose we could start with the revolt of the United Provinces and the Union of Utrecht in 1579, which created the Netherlands, or perhaps the decision by the Catholic Duke of Parma in 1585 to let Protestants leave captured Antwerp and set up shop in Amsterdam. Or we could start in 1595 with the creation of the first Amsterdam-based investment syndicate, the Company for Far Lands, which is what I call my Minecraft server. So the founder of the Company for Far Lands published this report called the Itinerario that excited dreams of vast wealth in spices from Southeast Asia. There's a key passage in the report that explains the riches available in the islands east of Malacca. In this place of Sunda, there is much pepper, and it is better than that of India or Malabar, whereof there is so great quantity that they could lade yearly from thence 500,000 pounds. It hath likewise much frankincense, camphor, and diamonds, to which men might very well traffic without much impeachment, for that the Portugals come not thither, because great numbers of Java come themselves unto Malacca to sell their wares. You'll note there that the initial idea was to break into this already existing trade system and displace the Portugals. So in the same way that trade in the Western Indian Ocean was flourishing before the arrival of Europeans, the South China Sea region in eastern Indian Ocean was a trade hotbed, perhaps even more valuable because of the riches of China. And it seems that the Dutch originally planned to try to break into that existing trade network on equal terms. Like, according to Jacob van Neck, the captain of the first successful expedition to Indonesia, the plan was, quote, not to rob anyone of their property, but to trade uprightly with all foreign nations. But pretty soon, that idea of free trade gave way to the hard reality that competition meant, lower prices. And by 1601, there were enough successful trade companies that the cost of buying spices in Indonesia was going up. And also, there was suddenly tons of pepper in Amsterdam, which meant the price that could be charged for that pepper was going down. Clearly, something had to be done. Ideally, that something would have been lower prices for everyone and an efficient marketplace. But the something that happened instead was the VOC. Let's go to the thought bubble. In 1601, the United Provinces, aka the Netherlands, were governed nationally by a representative body that met at The Hague, called the States General, although each of the individual provinces was largely self-governing. And the leader of the States General was able to convince all the provinces to accept a single entity to monopolize the East Indies trade. This new company, the VOC, was run by a 17-member board called the Heron 17. And these directors supposedly had control over a company that was chartered with the power to hire its own people and also to wage war. I say supposedly because, it took a year for communications from the Netherlands to reach the East Indies and another year for company officers to respond, so the VOC basically operated as its own sovereign nation, with the power to use as much violence as it needed to build and maintain its trading power. Like, according to author Stephen Bound, the VOC would essentially operate as a state within a state. And the VOC, together with its sister company, the West India Company, did use violence, attacking Portuguese and Spanish settlements in Chile, Brazil, East and West Africa, the Persian Gulf, India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, China, and the Philippines between 1602 and 1663 in what you could think of as an early world war. The VOC was also different from a lot of corporations because it was initially funded with 6.5 million guilders, about $100 million in today's money. And that capital was expected to fund business ventures for a long time going forward, not just for like one initial trade mission. And this long-term business thinking was unique, especially compared with the funding strategies of the VOC's biggest competitor, the British East India Company, and it reflected the advanced financial acumen of the Dutch model generally. Thanks, Thought Bubble. So we've got this company that's basically also a country. And it's not a particularly good country because it doesn't have like any of the responsibilities of government, nor does it have to answer to the people it's governing. All it has to do is make money. And it was really good at making money. Like, by 1648, the United Provinces were in better financial shape than every other nation in Europe. You can tell this partly just by looking at interest rates. Now, admittedly, interest rates are only one measure of financial health and power, but they're an important indicator even today. So Dutch businesses could borrow at a rate of 4% annual interest. And that's pretty cheap compared to the 10% it cost corporations to borrow money in England, or the 24.99% it costs me to borrow money on my credit card. And because Dutch debt was so much cheaper, they could invest 2.5 times as much in pretty much anything than the English could, including like an army and a navy. And this gave the Dutch a huge head start over their rivals. So one reason the interest rates were low is because the companies were healthy and they tended to pay people back. But another is that normal Dutch people were already used to investing their money in bonds that had been issued for land reclamation projects, the famous dikes and windmills that turned land below sea level into fields where you could grow tulips, or maybe something else, but all they ever grow is tulips. Like, according to business historian William Bernstein, the tradition of investing in bonds, quote, carried over into trade. After 1600, Dutch citizens would consider it just as natural to own a fractional share in a trading vessel to the Baltic or the Spice Islands. And a fractional share is another really interesting idea embraced by the Dutch that allowed merchants to bear greater risks by purchasing smaller percentage shares in business ventures. Like, it's much better to own a tenth of 10 ships than it is to own all of one ship, because the loss of a single trading ship won't, like, ruin you. And Dutch business people also enthusiastically invested in futures markets, guessing what the price of pepper would be 6 months or a year from now, and they created new financial instruments that could be bought and sold, and merchants purchased maritime insurance, which further lowered their risk. And lower risk means you can invest more of your capital until eventually you have a completely efficient market and everything is perfect until the 2008 crash. Wait, what were we talking about? The Dutch financial system and its corporations were simply better than their competitors, and that's why they seized the lion's share of the trading business. But that isn't the whole story. Like, one reason the VOC was so successful was government sponsorship and centralization. The VOC had been chartered by the States General, and it could count on the Dutch government to back it up with money and military support. There's another benefit to being sponsored by your government, which is that it's very hard for competition to emerge because it isn't sponsored by your government. For instance, in Indonesia, the VOC had a single governor general managing operations, while the British East India Company was more of like a collection of trading posts, each competing with each other for a share of the spices. Competition may bring down prices for consumers, but it also brings down profits for businesses. In 1605, the VOC realized that if it really wanted to maximize its profits, it would need a monopoly of the world's spice trade, and to do that, they would need permanent bases in Indonesia. Initially, they got spices by trading for them with the people who grew them, especially with the inhabitants of the Banda Islands, which was the only place where nutmeg was grown. But again, like, trading in a fair and equitable manner is no way to maximize profits. So at first the Bandanese welcomed the Dutch because they were much more laid back in terms of religion than the Portuguese, but very quickly the Dutch tricked them into signing exclusive trade agreements which the Bandanese were almost certain to violate, and then when they did violate them, it didn't go well. In 1609 the Bandanese were like, no, you don't understand, like, we need to trade for food, and the Dutch were like, but you promised, and the islanders killed 47 Dutch soldiers and officers in the ensuing fight. The Dutch killed far more Bandanese, who were eventually subdued and agreed to a nutmeg monopoly with the Dutch, although they continued to secretly trade with the English. And after all this, by 1612, Jan Pieters and Cohen became the dominant force in Dutch Indonesia. He was an accountant by training, but also a ruthless military leader who is largely responsible for the Dutch monopoly of the spice trade, and also for its really terrible relations with the British, and also for, like, you know, certain crimes against humanity. Cohen brought about the shift in VOC policy away from straightforward trade and toward monopoly of both shipping and production of spices. He also made it clear that this trade needed to be based on military force. He wrote, "Your honors should know by experience that trade in Asia must be driven and maintained under the protection and favor of your honors' own weapons, and that the weapons must be paid for by the profits from the trade, so that we cannot carry on trade without war, nor war without trade." There is no trade without war, nor war without trade. That's something to think about. Anyway, Cohen did make a lot of war, mostly on the English, despite the fact that the Netherlands and England were engaged in trade negotiations between 1613 and 1619. And in fact, fighting between the VOC and the English continued even after an agreement was signed. By using force, which included capturing and torturing English traders, Cohen was able to run off the English and secure the VOC monopoly over the spice trade. With the English out of the picture, Cohen could get down to the business of using violence to dominate not only the trade, but also the production of spices. His initial plan, to quote Stephen Bound, was to depopulate the island to replace their inhabitants with imported slave and indentured labor under VOC control, and he proceeded to carry out what amounted to ethnic cleansing of the Banda Islands. In about 20 years, the Dutch managed to acquire an almost complete monopoly on cloves, nutmeg, and mace. In 1658, they added cinnamon by taking control of Sri Lanka. And after 1638, they became the only Europeans allowed to trade in Japan. Now, we tend to think that the heart of the spice trade was between Indonesia and Europe, but it really wasn't. Like, the VOC capital at Batavia became the most important port in all of Southeast Asia, where spices from Indonesia, and gold and copper and silver from Japan, and tea and porcelain and silk from China all passed through to India, where they were traded for cotton, which was used to buy more Asian goods. And that was the real moneymaker for the VOC. By the middle of the 17th century, only the highest value luxury goods from the region even made it to Europe, because that's where the margins were the highest. So the middle of the 17th century was the golden age for the Dutch. It was the one that brought us Rembrandt and Vermeer, as well as all the wealth and finery that was depicted in their paintings. When you go to Amsterdam, which you should, and you walk along the canals and see the beautiful row houses, you'll note that many of them were built built in the 17th century. And much of that was based on the success of the VOC and the commerce in spices, but eventually Europeans' tastes changed, and the desire for nutmeg was supplanted by a hunger for sugar. Of course, the sugar trade would be known for its righteousness and fair trade. Just kidding, it would be known for slavery. Also, the woolens produced by the Dutch were being replaced by the market for cotton. Britain proved better positioned to dominate the trade and production in these new and more profitable commodities, and they eventually copied the centralized corporate governance and finance capitalism that had helped make the VOC so successful. According to Stephen Bown, ultimately maintaining the monopoly cost more than the spices were worth, and the company went bankrupt in 1799. So the VOC were pioneers of finance, and their relentless pursuit of profits made them the richest company in the 17th century, but we need to be careful about celebrating them as like a harbinger of modern capitalism. For one thing, it wouldn't have succeeded without government support, especially if it had engaged just in free trade. The VOC had an army and a navy that it used to attack and intimidate, which is, not free trade. I think there's a lot to take away from the story of the VOC. One thing that I like to remember is that this was all about nutmeg. We need to think carefully about what we value and why we value it and what we lose by valuing it, in the same way that I kind of wish people in Europe had about nutmeg in the 17th century. And the second thing is that while the VOC did eventually disappear and its control over Indonesia changed into Dutch colonization, the VOC provides a chilling example of what has happened in the past when corporations become more powerful than states. Good governments fulfill their responsibilities to the people they govern, and even bad governments, are afraid of the people they govern. And neither of those things happened in Indonesia when it was under the control of the Dutch East India Company.
Okay, just a quick one for some of my friends out there. If you haven't noticed, well, I'm looking at a map here from Frau Mar Carte, 457 through 459 AD. This map, well, I've been going through several other old maps, and you notice something strange about this map. Do you see here is Italy? Okay. This is the way I found several other maps I'd say from anywhere from 400 years old till 800 years old. And I'll go through a few of them with you, and you can zoom in. I'll zoom in here. And there are some really interesting points I want to bring out of what I found in my research. Yeah, I can always explain this to one friend on the telephone, but what good will that be? And I want to share a little bit of the insight I have on this subject that I already received from a friend in South Africa. Okay, as you can see, this is Africa. Okay, we know that it was very much more a white continent, and I will show you why. But all of this up here, you have all these kingdoms and so forth. Seems a bit odd. Some people looking at these castles and fortresses and things in Africa. What is this doing 500 years ago? More than 500 years ago, almost 600 years ago, we're seeing all these castles throughout Africa. Okay? All throughout Africa. Many old castles. I mean, this just blew my mind. Alright, this is Africa, and this is the map right side up. Now let's go through a few more. Alright, and this is a map from Angelina Dulcert. This is from the 1300s. Are you already noticing that a lot of the words are upside down? Now, I can flip it over for you so you can kind of get a better idea. And let me go out. You can see here's Italy. You see? There's Spain. There's Africa. Alright? There's Africa down here. I'll show you some interesting things again about Africa. It goes all the way over here. Alright? Well, up here, you see here's, of course, this is where the Netherlands, and this is England, this is Ireland. Here you have the Rhine River, you have the Swiss Alps, the Danube, okay, Denmark. They have all the normal features here. Poland is a little bit more predominant. Poland is actually, seems kind of far away, but it's right here. You see how even Poland, the word is upside down? You see Germania, okay, Alemania. You have the Danish royal crest, and that one is actually upside down. Wow, look at that. Alright, now let's move down, move down, move down. Now you see some of the letters are going this way. You see how now they're crossed a different direction. Alright? Going down, going down, going down. Now you have some stuff that looks right side up. Okay, we're down in Africa here. This is part of the, I really don't yet understand why, but several of the maps. Okay, here's the border of Africa here. Okay, here's the Mediterranean. But for some reason, and I'll have to research it, why several maps have this big black thing. I don't know if that represents the Muslims or what it is. Okay, but here's the Red Sea. Here's Saudi Arabia. Okay, let's go in there. That looks like a queen in Saudi Arabia, a white queen. Alright, you have Palestine. Okay, going back down. Now, important things here. Way down here in the south of Africa, you have this guy. Alright, does he look like a African? And you have all these castles What are all these great, looks like kingdoms, European kingdoms, down here, all throughout Africa? Alright? What is this all about? What's going on? Anyway, this is the only thing that's right side up. Then when you look at the rest, it's all upside down. Okay? But you can see that's again pretty good map. Again, this is from Angelino Dulcert from I think it's around 1330 on this one. Okay, I'm just going to flip to the next one. Well, I couldn't leave out this one. We have a pretty nice map here. Let me see if I can get it so everyone can see. Flipping over here. This is the Sali map from 1100 1110 AD. It has let's see if I can show you a better view. Okay, it has angels at the top and at the bottom. Here you have Ethiopia or Africa. Now let me get a different view here. Okay, this one is with a little bit of a better overlay, so it's been redrawn so that you can get a good idea. Yes, again from 1100 AD. Very important here. Red Sea. Here you have, I believe this would be here's Jerusalem. Okay, but notice how Ethiopia is oriented, and then you have Africa. You see the rivers in there. Maybe our friends from South Africa can kind of explain these rivers and what all this is. We have Africa. Yeah, as you know, this is no professional recording. This is just for a few of my friends, so I don't have to just jump on the phone and say, hey man, check it out. I'm just showing you guys real quick so you can see. But yeah, I believe that is still the Red Sea, and you do have Africa there. Yeah, just zoomed in a bit better here, and you know, you can pause this and do a bit more research while I am panning through. And I'm going to go down a bit. There we go. This is all Africa. Huh. What are all these castles doing in Africa? All these kingdoms. What's that big white king doing down there at the very bottom? All of these, and what's going to get interesting is in the next one. You see these guys here, these monsters, or these non-human creatures here that they supposedly had. There must have been some sort of war, but this is all definitely Africa. You have all these African animals, but then you have these guys. What's this guy? See his face and part of his body here? Alright. Quite interesting, huh? Now I'm going to get into the next slide that I think is really the most interesting one. Okay, now this is the crowning item, although it's not going to be the last one. This is the largest medieval map in the world, and it has some very important things to show you, okay? It's called the Psalter map. It's from around 1200 AD, and Jerusalem is at the center. Give me just a moment. Okay, I'm going to zoom in a bit. You can see Jerusalem. Now again, hold on a second. This looks upside down now, doesn't it? I don't know if you can see, but this is Egypt. You see the I think this is an obelisk of sorts. Okay, just so you can first of all see, this is South Africa, people. Alright, let's go down so I can show you a bit more. Alright. Okay, this might be a little better to see. Jerusalem, Rome, Roma, the Alps, these great rivers. I think this is Spain, like we covered before. The Danube, I think this might be the Netherlands here. Alright. So this is the north. This is the north. I hope that's clear. This is the north. Alright, so then this would be the south over here. Anyway, some interesting points on this map. Look at these alien races here, all living under the ground. All the different creatures, all the different monsters. Alright. What are these little eyes? See the eye here? An eye there, an eye there, an eye there. Eyeballs all over the place, and rivers that come out from them. Here, here. There were some very important things. See these dragons? These were important to put in maps before, and they should probably still be in the maps today. What they call legends in some of the maps, of course. But here you have, what are all these really, looks like, I don't know, cities and things, all down in Africa. Looks like they have more there than they had in Europe. Okay, well, the point a friend was sharing was, look, it used to be that in Africa, well, of course, you had these areas where Abraham left. Abraham's children left. The scripture says they went northwest to become a multitude of mighty nations. But that there's basically some sort of extinction level events going on. The scripture even talks about 2/3 are going to die of plague and famine, 1/3 is going to go into slavery, and who knows what else is going to happen to the earth. And it says that Yahweh will make a man so precious and rare that it'll be harder to find a man than it will be for finding the golden wedge of an Ophir. Okay, and this was a very rare type of gold that almost no one could find. And it could be like the Abraham style, where he had to get multiple wives. He had to totally build up his own nation. He had to build altars. He had to tell his children, get out from among them and be separate. He had to tell his children, only marry the women who are of your own lineage. And they sent special, they had to go outside of the Canaanite tribes to go to those special lands where there was those who are of the same Hebrew lineage. And these kind of things we might be seeing soon among the Adamic and kindred peoples. And here you have, we're going to probably have to be going back to South Africa. As you can see on the maps I've shown you, that is the north. Well, maybe it's not north, but it could be. It's supposed to be at the top of the map. Okay, I think we have our maps backwards. Okay, Europe has become death traps for our own people, and we'll have more freedom if we all move to Africa. Yes, here are the original and more correct maps. like from the 1400s. This is at the top of the map. You see these words are right side up. Let me just show you some more words here. Ethiopia, you see that? You keep going, keep going. What do you have over here? Let's just show you. Look, I zoomed out. Here's Europe, it's upside down. Alright? This is all upside down. Except for perhaps, yeah, we're all looking at everything upside down actually. Well, you see the drawings are right side up and the letters are right side up. But what's this doing? What's this doing? I think yeah, we have some educated people and they know what's going on. What an amazing thing, huh? Who would have thought it? Who would have thought it? Alright, I'm going to get into one more slide. And before I do, I will show you the way that other websites list this photo. They list it like this. It looks like our normal types of maps with Spain and France, you know, Great Britain and so forth. But when you zoom in, what are you looking at? All the letters. Egypt. I started to say, what in the world's going on? What in the world's going on? Anglia! Oh no! It's upside down! You see? The other websites list this upside down. Now this is right side up. Let's go up here where it belongs. Okay. I just have to share this, and I'm just telling you how and what I thought when I saw it. And I'm just circling around it a bit so you can also get an idea and see more detail of the map. I'm getting in all through the edges. But the orientation of the Earth, yes, I think it's important, okay? And if for so long this is right side up, I'm sorry folks, I think it's kind of important. And I think the more correct ways okay, next. And now one more. Looky here. What do you have here? Europe. Europe. It's all down here. Okay? I don't know if you can see it well, but it's upside down. This is Europe. Of course, they tore out part of Germany there. That's a shame. I don't know why they did that. Maybe some secrets we need there, but yeah, these older maps. This is the if you want to look it up, there's the name. Is Storfer Mapundi. This one is also about 1,000 years old. Very important things in here, creatures and things that we should really know about. Pretty good resolution copies available easily online. But here's, I believe this is all part of Africa. And looks like white people were there. You have again lots of monsters and animals, okay? It's good they put that in a map. I mean, you want to know what's going on. But yeah, here we are, Africa. You have all these castles and so forth. Again, just going through here. Zooming out, alright? Look at all that. Look at all this. What is this? What are all these monsters doing in Africa, huh? Okay. I believe this is Jerusalem again. Galilee. Alright. Okay, yeah. You can pause it if you like and look through this a bit more. I'm just going to go through the up to the north of it. But you know, it's funny. Alright, looks like the north here is east actually, but yeah, east is a better place to have at the top of the map, perhaps. Some might argue that, but it's just to show you the different ways people can be thinking what is really the right side up. Now, I don't like this, how they patch some whole area. Again, and they have a big hole in Germany. But this part, this whole patching business, I don't know about that. But yep, I would say what happened? Did a pole shift happen? What should really be in our minds at the top of the map? Shouldn't it be something more biblical? And where we should be orienting ourselves. It's this over here was called the ends of the earth, where you had Great Britain down here in this bottom corner. This was the ends of the earth. Alright. Great Britain, ends of the earth. I think it's somewhere around here. Alright, well, that's all I have to share on this, and I hope you've found something interesting in what people thought before. It's not, I know there's been a lot of slander and a lot of attack against what people thought before, but there was a lot of knowledge, and even more knowledge, and in some areas very much more scientific than what they have today. Sometimes I wonder, and I can see many examples where they were much more advanced in the oh, I just noticed something. They were, you see the feet here, see the hands, and then you see the head.
Bosman. So the reason why this book is important, done by Willem Piso and George Margraaf, is that it was done in the time when the Dutch briefly held Brazil. Now we know Brazil is a Portuguese colony, but in the 1640s, the Dutch were holding Brazil, and the governor, Count Moritz of Nassau, thought it important to do scientific studies. So he brings over Willem Piso to look at questions of plants and the knowledge about plants. And in this time, we remember that the knowledge about plants is like knowing where gold and diamonds and oil are later on in history. So Piso does this book. And what do you find when you see the book is that the Tupinamba and the enslaved Africans are there on these early sugar plantations at the same time, and they're exchanging knowledge with each other. Most of the book is about what he calls the simples, which are the medicinal plants, the herbal medicines of the Tupinamba. But occasionally you find a page like this one that's shown there, where he reports that the Africans are teaching the Indians how, or the indigenous people, how to use particular plants. And so you begin to get a notion of the plants that the Africans managed to bring over, or that were brought over in the slave ship, like sesame, eggplant, and okra. And you also get a sense of how the Tupinamba are teaching the enslaved Africans about some very important plants, usually maize, but also cassava, which is the bread of the Caribbean. It's the bread of the Tainos, it's the bread of the Brazilians. The terms that were being used by the Portuguese and the Dutch at this time are also interesting. They called the Tupinamba in the beginning, when they enslaved them, negros da terra, the blacks of this land. And the ones who were coming in from Guinea and from Angola, and that's the first set, they are negros de Guinea and negros de Angola. It's an interesting use of the notion of color and slavery. And the picture on the lower right, what you see is, it looks like they're trying to depict Africans, but actually this is an early depiction of Tupinamba, who are enslaved and who are put to producing the bread, this bread called casabe or cassava, depends on which part of the Caribbean or Latin America you're in. And these were first enslaved Tupinamba who have to produce this bread. So for me, this is an interesting evidence of not just the enslavement, joint enslavement side by side of Native Americans and enslaved Africans, but also the knowledge they exchanged and the knowledge and the wealth of knowledge that they bring to the colonizers.
What kind?
Kind of face you got, Belle? That Mandinka face.
Mandinka?
Ah.
What foodstuff's that you talking about? That's African. I ain't no African. I ain't no African.
Mongoloid. Relating to the broad division of humankind, including the indigenous people of Eastern Asia, Southeast Asia, and the Arctic region of North America. Okay? What's up, people? What's good? What's good? We're going to continue on part 4 of this series because we cannot just discard this book called the Bible because it is some great secrets in this book. You go down to the descriptions and read what allegory is. Read it real good. Because what we're going to do now is show you why these people that you call Native Americans are not our people. They are not so-called Israelites or Hebrews, or they are not Americans at all. Look at these two jokers right here. This is Moab and Ammon today. Okay? You dress these fools up in some Native American regalia, and there you have these jokers that you brothers talking about are the northern tribes. Man, you guys need to quit it, man. I'm finna expose this today, man. We already got Esau. I'm not done with him yet, but I'm finna tie this all in. Psalms 83 here, okay? Go back to and watch the videos again after this from part 1 and catch on up. Because we're going to expose this today. These Mongoloids are not the American Indians in any shape, form, or fashion. They are mixed all in with Esau. And they are not our people. So you can quit. You Israelite tribes. You can quit it with the Native Americans and all this stuff. All the northern tribes. Northern the hell they not. I'm the northern tribe if it ever was such a thing. The American Indian, the copper-colored race is found here by the Europeans. Okay? Deuteronomy 23, verse 3. An Ammonite, who is a Japanese of today, or a Moabite, who is the Chinese of today, both Mongoloids, shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord. Even to their 10th generation shall they not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. But no, man, God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. They shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. No, everybody accepted in the New Testament. They shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. No, God loved everybody, man. Jesus came to save everybody. They shall not enter into the congregation of the Lord forever. Let's see why. Now let's see some of the characteristics of Ammon and Moab, whom are some of the people that are confederate against us with the Caucasian. These are some of the people who have infiltrated our nation, and we call the Native Americans today. The ones that look Mongoloid, which means Asian. Isaiah 66:17. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh, and the abomination, and the mouse shall be consumed together, said the Lord. Now let's see if Moab and Ammon eat abominations. We know that Esau also eats abomination. But let's see who eats the mouse, all right? Or the rat. Psalms 58:3. The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies. Isaiah 66:17. They that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the gardens behind one tree in the midst, eating swine's flesh and the abomination, and the mouse shall be consumed together, said the Lord. Zephaniah 2:8-9. I have heard the reproach of Moab and the insults of the people of Ammon, with which they have reproached my people, and made arrogant threats against their borders. Therefore, as I live, says the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, surely Moab shall be like Sodom, and the people of Ammon like Gomorrah, overwhelmed with weeds and salt pits and a perpetual desolation. The residue of my people shall plunder them, and the remnant of my people shall possess them.
Partei gerade 7 Mann hoch war, sprach sie schon 2 Grundsätze aus. Erstens, sie wollte eine wahrhaftige Weltanschauungspartei sein. Und zweitens, sie wollte daher kompromisslos die einzige Macht und alleinige Macht in Deutschland. Als Partei in der Minorität bleiben, weil wir die wertvollsten Elemente des Kampfes und des Opfers sind, in der Nation mobilisierten, die zu allen Seiten nicht die Mehrheit, sondern die Minderheit ausgemacht haben. Und weil dieser beste Rassenwert der deutschen Nation in einer stolzen Selbsteinschätzung, mutig und kühn, die Führung des Reiches und Volkes forderte, hat das Volk sich in immer größerer Zahl dieser Führung angeschlossen und unterstellt. Das deutsche Volk ist glücklich in dem Bewusstsein, dass die ewige Flucht der Erscheinungen nunmehr endgültig abgelöst wurde von einem ruhenden Tod.
Now we have another archaeology book by Time Life magazine. And from this particular archaeology book, we have a man by the name, a picture of a man by the name of Adolf Hitler, where the media, the scholars portrayed him as a madman. But Adolf Hitler was not a madman. He knew what he was talking about. Most of his speech were in German. He knew exactly what he was talking about. And he knows the records of the real Germans. The original Germans, which means genuine Jews, noble people. He knew that they were black. He knew. Now, this is the front cover of the archaeological record put together by Time Life Books. So you can see the title of this particular book called The Nazis, World War II. Let me turn it right. Here it is. The Nazis. The Nazis, World War II. As you can see, here's the picture again of Adolf Hitler. Now what we will do, as the camera's still rolling, is go in front of the page. Go down to here. We are at the front of the page. Now this particular archaeology book was put together by Robert Edwin Hertzstein. If I'm not mistaken, from the last name, it seems like a so-called Jew to me. The editors of Time Life Books, the Nazis. And Time Life Books is a major publishing company. Let's see what Time Life Books says concerning the Jews. On page 132, in the archaeology book titled The Nazis, World War II, The scholars have put together a records of the things that Adolf Hitler was doing. Now what you're seeing here is Adolf Hitler, right here. And the scene here is a theater. Adolf Hitler showing documentary films. And the man next to him is his right-hand man. And we will read the caption at the bottom. Adolf Hitler and the rest of his comrades showing documentary films. Now let's see what happened. The man that we have just saw, his name is Goebbels, and Hitler personally appraised a new German movie when the Fuhrer complained that films exposing the Nazi line were too scarce. Goebbels rushed a pair of anti-Semitic pictures into the production. Let's go down. In one segment of the Nazi instructional film, right, the genetic heritage of the Jews is purportedly traced to the Oriental. Why would he say some things like that? Because the original Chinese Orientals were black Hebrew Israelites. We have records on that, and we will share that with our brothers and sisters later on, and the taping. Negro, that covers the Negroes throughout North, Central, and South America. Near Asian, code, all these words are code for Israelites. Keep going. Hermetic people. Now, we're not Hermetic, we are Shemitic. The blacks over here in America, throughout North, Central, and South America, are Shemitic. We're not Hermetic. We did not descend from Ham. We are descended of Shem. Go on. Yes, the film concludes. The Jews today is a bastard. Should we stop? So did Adolf Hitler know who the real Jews were? Yes, he did. He was showing documentary films, showing the original ethnicity, genealogy of the real Jews, that they're black. And the ones that were following, he called them bastards. The so-called white people that were following a black religion. Did they call that what? Judaism? Yes, Judaism is a black religion. Adolf Hitler knew who they were, and he was teaching that in Germany. The real Jews are the Schwarzers. The real Jews are the blacks. That's what the word Schwarzer means. Now, not only did he say in writing that, go back to that again, that the real Jews are black, genetic heritage of the Jews is traced to the Negroes. Oriental, code word for black, for Hebrew Israelites. Near Asian, Hebrew Israelite. Now, they go off when they say Hermetic people. We're not Hermetic. We're Shemitic. So how can you be anti-Shemitic if you yourselves are Shemitic? I don't understand. The Negroes in America are Shemitic. They're the real Jews from the tribe of Judah. Now let's look at the pictures that Adolf Hitler put together. German word for Oriental. Orientalen. I'm not fluent in Germany, but I'm pretty sure I'm close. A black Jew. Go back. Here it is. Black Jews. Those are the things Adolf Hitler was showing. But when you get to here, right here, scroll down, hey, he is all over the world. Eastern Parkway, Broadway, Fifth Avenue, the diamond industry. What did Adolf Hitler call him? Look at it. That is the German word for bastards, brothers and sisters. That is the German word for bastard. Did Adolf Hitler that the real Jews are black? Yes. And that the ones that were calling themselves Jews are what? Imposters. And there is a passage in the records of the real Jews, which is called the Bible, where God says in Zechariah chapter 9, verses 6, and a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, and I will cut off the pride of the Philistines. Did Adolf Hitler know that? Yes. Who are the bastards today? The ones that are not Israelites, the so-called Jews. It's in the records. We're not making this up. What record book are we looking at? The Nazis, by Time Life Books. Who put this together? The scholars among the serpent. The scholars among the dragon. And the records are coming out, destroying the lie. This is the proof. And when you read Zechariah 9, verses 6, God says, a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod, which is in the future. Now when you trace the geographical location of Ashdod, it is Tel Aviv in Palestine. So who's ruling over there? God says, a bastard shall dwell in Ashdod. God says that. Did Adolf Hitler know that? Yes. There it is. So the so-called Jews are imposters. Go back to the writing against us so they can see it. Adolf Hitler showing documentary film of the real Jews being black. This is amazing. I'm shocked. I would need a break. I'm sorry. Read it again. In one segment of a Nazi instructional film right, the genetic heritage, go back, the genetic heritage of the Jews is purportedly traced to Oriental Negro. Oriental. Code word for black Hebrew Israelite. Negro, that gives it away. So Hitler was teaching that the real Jews are black. Why are you following a black religion?